So the gray lathe here was BIAX scraped. They use a medium blade, also from the point of view of radius, a 90 millimeter radius. I could have used wider blades and also then larger radiuses, but I chose this as a medium, happy medium. So just snug it down. There's a rubber gasket, so no need to destroy that. And the stroke length is set quite long. It's at least long enough now. And then this is done in this slot where the arrows are. And then we have to have a sufficient speed, quite high speed, which it is set to. Then it's just to proceed. And I use Circus now for the roughing. Then I will just vacuum and then proceed to take it from the opposite side, not to bang the cutter into the corners. And it is at this point that it is clear that this is not an economic undertaking. I mean, I have to take it down 3/400ths of a millimeter. And even so, that will require some 14, 15, 16, maybe 20 passes. So in favor of that, of course, grind the bed. That's much better. So taking it from the other side, having turned the bed around. So you see here, then I work from, let's say, the middle until I get to the outer edges. This avoids then potential risk of damaging the machine if you bang the cutter into the corner. And then the same procedure as always, namely the bluing. Take it very carefully, having gotten rid of all the grit, and feeling and listening if there is any grit still left. And this is most important to not, of course, destroy or damage the plate. And in this case, it was quite okay, so I just continue. And this here is the normal procedure. Just rub it until you bleed it up. And in this case, this is after the first scraping session, so not much to expect really. Then looks quite okay. You see, it's not that much worn really, but there's a lot of hacksaw marks and stuff under the headstock, of course, expected flat. So since it all blew up, so that to that degree, not that much worn. So each time I'm doing something on the plate, I'm particular about not being anything in between, because it's very, very important to keep the surface plate in order, of course. And one of the other things you do when you bluing up, you hinge the part, so to speak, feeling for where it is contacting. In this early stage, it's not so important really, but when you get to a more full coverage, it's very important that it sits correctly, as we can say. And here you can also see from the wear point of view how the machine has been used and what kind of use it has, and this has been probably normally used, not a lot of wear, which is evident by the fact that it blows up almost all over the headstock or under the headstock area right away. But as we can see here, along the line here, there is wear from the tailstock being used, and also from the saddle running up and down towards the headstock end. And just as a precaution, there is a chance that, given that you're not taught, that you make mistakes. So even on smaller pieces, but an undertaking like a full bed to scrape that is at least hand scraping. I wouldn't have begun without duly being trained and or having the scope, let's say, in mind. So grinding would be the best alternative. And that's also much more economic, really, if you think about it. And it's not a really big investment. If you compare it to, for example, one of the lead screws, that will be comparable to what you pay for a grinding. But of course, it's nice when you can scrape, and of course do that. Invest in a BIAX scraper. That will also be of very much use here. A good tip is also to mark out either the scraped cycle or the cycle to be scraped, so that you know, because each cycle will take you 10 to 15 minutes and you tend to forget what you have done. So this is at least my trick to obtain this crosshatch pattern. And machine scraping tends to wear down the blade faster, make it dull faster, because of the more efficient and more strokes per minute, I guess. And then I use a diamond wheel grinder for that purpose to hold the blade again. Just a slight angle on this blade, like 2 to 5 degrees, and I then hold towards the middle of the blade, which ensures that if any chip surface deformations are produced, this will be not to the edge I'm using. So, okay, sharp enough to be used here. Then important, just snug it down. This blade need not to be tightened hard because there's a rubber gasket here that you don't want to destroy. And when now you view the middle bed there, you can see the black marker. This points me in the correct direction I shall scrape. And after once more, 6 passes, and we see that the rear is actually starting to come in, but as predicted, the front surface here has a long way to go. So starting to get better, at least on the rear way there. Natural progression. It's coming in slow. I assume we have at least a double amount, meaning 8 more passes to go, where we begin to see how the front way is closing in. And measuring here, it shows that I have about 200ths of a millimeter left here. We'll see if the stripes are more than this. And as you have to do from time to time, measure. And now we're down from 2 to 1 hundredths of millimeters, say half a thou then. And it took then 3 or 4 passes to get down that much. Sure, it takes a while. If I'm very fast, I think I'm down to 10 minutes per cycle. And this is how a BIAX script surface looks. This is what I do with the patterns then overlapping depending on the angle you look. The stripes are going either one way or the other way. So like an X or a crosshatch pattern.